Ready to walk through the solutions for our file handling practice problems? If you haven't tried them yet, or if you want to follow along, the notebook is linked in the description. Alright, let's start with problem 1. In this problem, we'll start a journal by writing our first 3 entries to a file called journal.txt. After we've written to the file, we'll read it back and print the contents. We're given a list of 3 entries, day 1 through day 3, stored in a variable called entries. To create the file, we call the open function, passing in journal.txt and W for write mode, and store the connection in a variable called file. With the file open, we write to it by calling file.write. The write method only accepts a single string, so to write each of the items in our list, we need to combine them into a single string. To join the entries, we call the join method on a new line character and pass in our entries list. When this line is run, Python will concatenate the entries and put a new line character between each one. The new line separator puts each entry on its own line in the file. Once we're done writing, we close the file. Remember, closing the file is important. These changes might not be saved to the file without it. Running the cell, we can see that our journal.txt file is created. Inside the file, we see our 3 entries were written successfully. Great! Now that we've written to the file, let's read it back. To do this, we call open again, but this time pass in R for read mode. Like before, we'll save the connection to a variable file. We then use this file variable to read the contents of journal.txt and save them to a variable. Finally, we close the file and print its contents. Running the code, we see all 3 entries printed back exactly as they were in the file. When working with files, you'll follow this general pattern. Open a file, do something to it, and close it. Great, let's move on to problem 2. In this problem, we need to add 3 more entries, days 4 through 6, to the journal file we created in problem 1. The key here is adding the entries to the file without overwriting what's already there. To do that, we open journal.txt again, but this time pass in an A for append mode instead of a W. Append mode tells Python to start writing at the end of the existing file, rather than the beginning. To write the new entries, we join them just like we did in problem 1. We also need to add in an additional leading new line character to ensure the new entries start on a fresh line after the last existing entry. When we're done appending to the file, we close it. To confirm all 6 entries are in the file after the append operation, we open journal.txt in read mode, read the contents, close the file, and print the contents. Running the code, we see the 3 original entries followed by the 3 new entries. Awesome, let's finish up with problem 3, where we'll use context managers to handle file connections. In this problem, we need to search the journal file, extract only the Python-related entries, and write those to a new file. First, to read the journal file, we open it using a with statement, and store the connection by writing as file. Inside the with block, we read the contents of the file. Because the read method returns a single long string, we need to break it up into a list of entries using the split method. The split method takes as an argument the character to split the string on. Since we separated each entry with a new line when we wrote to the file, we pass this character as the argument. At this point, if we print the entries variable and run the code, we indeed get a list of entries. Great! The next step is to build a list of only the entries that contain the word Python and write that to a new file. We can do this using a for loop that iterates through each entry in the entries list. Inside this loop, we check if the word Python is in the entry. If it is, then we append it to our Python's entries list. Finally, to write the Python entries to a new file, we open python entries.txt in write mode using another with statement. Inside this block, we join the entries into a single string, like we did in problem 1, and write them to the file. Lastly, to read the Python entries file back, we open python-entries.txt in a third with statement. Inside this with statement, we can directly print the contents of the file. Running the code, we see 3 entries printed out, days 1, 3, and 5. We can also see the python-entries.txt file was created with those entries. The benefit of using a context manager in this example is we don't need to call close each time when we're done working with a file. We should also note that the filtering loop we just wrote can actually be rewritten as a single line. This is called a list comprehension. It does the same thing as the loop, just more compactly. If list comprehensions are new to you, we have a full video on them linked in the description. Awesome! Those are the solutions to our file handling practice problems. If you want to continue to build on what you know, check out our video on context managers linked in the description. We're working on lots more Python explainer videos like this one, so be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out. If you have any questions or topics that you'd like to learn about, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching!